All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Minor Obsession. It's been a while. We've had some cancellations and things, so we figured basketball's going. Let's get awesome coach on the line, longtime listener, second time caller, because we had you before we went into this COVID pandemic. Vic Sfera. Vic, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the pod, like you were saying, and I think that was our first season here, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if it was last year or not, but no, enjoy the podcast. I've actually shared it with some recruits in the past, so you guys are doing good things.
Nice.
I love it.
Yeah,
I bet the recruits are like, oh yeah, those guys, those are some great takes. We're definitely coming here so we can have them analyze our play.
That's right. No, it was little small segments. I don't want to let them out too much and have them listen to the whole deal. But in sound bites, you guys are really good.
I like it. And of course, shout out to, was it Tintin on Twitter? Special requests, we're men of the people, so we hear you want an interview from Vic, boom, we got Vic. So just like that.
Ask and you shall receive. Yeah.
Yeah. So Vic, we'll start kind of high level and just kind of tell us the story. I'm thinking, you're in Texas. We're about to have this tournament. You go and you watch the women's basketball game, and then COVID seriously hits, and that's when sports start to get canceled. Can you walk us through kind of your experience as a coach, kind of losing out on that tournament? And then, the off season's kind of fascinating to me too, with people transferring out, with recruits coming in, and kind of how this off season led to the games that we're currently in now.
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. I feel like I've reflected back on our time in Dallas so often during this, and I'm like, man, it really doesn't feel like it was that long ago. But then, we're 250 days from playing game to game from last season to this season or something like that. But no, Texas was, just putting myself back in that situation, our team was feeling pretty good. I think we were starting to really come together as a group in conference play last year. I mean, we had the most home wins in Halton Arena history, which was huge. We were struggling on the road some, but that was not unique for such a young team, and for really all teams in Conference USA. It was so slanted towards home teams, but we really took care of that end and did some good things at home. And really, it was our first chance as a staff, and as a team, to be in the conference tournament. We weren't able to make it the first year that we were here, and it was a huge opportunity for our guys to get postseason experience. That type of experience is really, really valuable, because now guys could go into this season and be like, all right, I did it before, I was there before. So when we go back to Dallas this year, hopefully, our guys aren't saying, this is our first time. So that was kind of the biggest bummer, was that our guys didn't really get to experience the game, but at least they saw the venue. They saw, that we had a first round bye. We were picked preseason 12th in the conference last year, ended up finishing in 4th. So we were able to get a first round bye, which was huge for us. And so we took in the atmosphere. We watched Florida International play the day before. I believe they played Rice the night before our game. So we were scouting that. So as a coaching staff, we were actually all there on the baseline, taking notes for our game for the next day. And our players came in and watched about half of that. So at least they got to feel it. But then, everything hit that evening. And to be honest, I was so wrapped up in the scout, so wrapped up in FIU, that I was kind of clueless as to what was going on. I mean, Coach Sanchez was being informed, Chris Fuller, and our administration, they were doing a lot of things behind the scenes, and there were kind of rumblings starting to happen, as I believe the Ivy League was the first league to kind of shut down. But I had my blinders on and I had no clue. And so the next morning when, you started hearing more rumblings, more conferences, starting to cancel their tournaments and things like that, I started hearing it and I was like, oh no, but I was still kind of, on FIU and all that. And I didn't believe it. I mean, we went to shoot around. I was, we were expecting to, give our guys kind of the last final bullet points. We watched film before we left shoot around. So we were preparing to go, to play that day. And then at shoot around, literally we pulled up to the gym and we got the word that the tournament was going to be canceled. And it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for our guys, heartbreaking for the seniors, heartbreaking for the staff who put in, a lot of work. Those scouts take a long time, to prepare and to put together and to get ready for a game, and to have those, go out the window. I was joking with another coach today. I said, 2020 is the year of the wasted scout. You do all this work and you just throw it out the window. And that was really the first time I had experienced that. And it was tough. It was a tough feel for sure.
You might have just won the award for being the only person I've heard in 2020 to say March didn't feel that long ago. So kudos to you for whatever positivity you're drinking over there to make March not feel that long ago.
Well, and that goes into kind of your second question was what the off season looked like after that. And I guess the reason why it went by in a flash for me, the Zoom recruiting and we're trying to sign players without them ever coming to campus. And between the transfers heading out, trying to replace some of our seniors from last year, trying to replace some of those guys that decided to pursue other programs and bring in some other transfers, bring in some late edition high school guys. For us, it really flew by. It was strange. It was the weirdest thing ever, to be recruiting from our living rooms and all that. But it did go by fast for me.
Not to get into too much of the behind closed doors conversations, but were you caught off guard with how much recruiting you needed to do to fill the squad for this year, given the transfers? It seemed from a fan perspective a bit of a surprise how many folks decided to pursue other opportunities.
Yeah, it's one of those things as a coach these days. It doesn't ever really surprise you. There might be one or two that I didn't really see that one coming. But for the most part, you're always expecting there to be some departures, some guys coming in, all that. It's just kind of becoming the norm in college basketball. And sadly, I don't know how many people follow kind of the NCAA rules. But the transfer rules are changing in college basketball to where now you don't even have to sit out a year. You can play immediately at your new place. So I think it's just going to become a little bit more of the norm, unfortunately. But you know what, the players, have that choice and that freedom to pick where they want to go. And some guys wanted to go closer to home. And you know what, after COVID and all that hit, I think a lot of people realized maybe that we're further away from home, that their priorities change too, and just like us as adults, these challenging times kind of change our priorities. The kids are no different.
I'm just curious, can you walk us through kind of what does a Zoom recruiting visit feel like? Like, are you walking around with your cell phone and showing them like a tour of the campus, or you have some really good videos put together? I'm just curious, the dynamic change there.
Yeah, no, we've had to get really creative. And there were times where we had to get like special permission to come on campus because, things were on lockdown and all that. And we had to get special permission to just come isolated, just one person, and take some, video footage of different buildings. And we covered everything that we tried to do in an in-person visit. So your campus tour, your meeting with the strength and conditioning coach, your with the academic piece, what does the study halls look like? All those things that you would get in an in-person visit, we tried to do virtually, and we tried to give them, with videos, with those kind of virtual tours, we tried to give them as close of a taste as they could get of our program. And it was challenging, but I think as a college basketball coaching community, it's challenged us to get a little more creative. And I think we've realized how much we can get done, maybe save some budgets, down the line and things like that, how much you could get done in a short amount of time. And also just, over features like this. I give you guys credit. This is minor, since the last time I've been on, this is actually minor obsession 2.0, because now we're on Zoom and all that. I've always been told I had a face for podcasts, but this is a whole different deal with the video now.
That's funny. Yeah, we've had to adapt. I mean, one of the big reasons we did it was to be able to come and chat with people like you in person and really get to know the program better and kind of become ingrained with it. But now, it's freed up some of our time because there's no drives to campus, but
Yeah,
also not quite as fun to have to talk over phone, but,
right.
Zoom makes it a little better.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
There's pros and cons to everything, I guess.
there are. So we talked about the recruiting side of the offseason. What about practice? Obviously, football is a little further ahead in the schedule because they kick off earlier in the season. You had them kind of as a template, and then all of the fall sports got moved to spring. So it was kind of just football and basketball focus on campus. Did you have to adjust your normal timeline at all? I know you got kids on campus for practice pretty early on, but what was that
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, so typically we would get our guys here for summer one. As summer one, we kind of usually do as more of an optional deal. And usually the returners come for summer one, and they get to really hone in on more of their individual workouts and knocking out a class as well. So obviously summer one was not an option this year for our guys. So that usually our team gets here early June, and you start acclimating your new guys, and then it got pushed back about a month. So we were fortunately able to start bringing guys. I think by mid-July, I think we had everybody in place. But so it did push our timeline back a little bit, probably more from Coach Morgan's standpoint and the strength and conditioning piece, especially for new guys, getting them acclimated to our programs and our systems and just how we do things here. Had to take place over Zoom as well. But we were fortunate that we got a good amount of guys here in the summer, and we're able to kind of stick to our timeline. Now, we had to pause things at some certain points, just like a lot of programs are experiencing now. And it was that stop start. Whenever you had an interruption, that was the piece where coaches really had to adjust and figure out what was the best plan of action after that.
So we talked about practice, we talked about recruiting. Let's talk about the games. I know we were supposed to be in that Tennessee tournament. We traveled there, and then that got canceled. Mike Hill kind of put something together that we had one game, and then those got canceled. You talked about the year of the scout or the forgotten scout.
Yeah.
How is that for the team, both from a scouting perspective, but also team morale? Preparing, getting excited about a game, and then kind of getting it taken away.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's tough. I have a lot of information on Tennessee and VCU for anybody that is interested. But no, for our guys, that's the hardest part. I mean, you can see it on their faces when you have to deliver bad news. It started in March. It started in Dallas. You can see it on their faces. And then to have it happen right off the bat this season, and this year, obviously, everybody's kind of anticipating that things might go like that. But to get on the bus, get all the way there, and then get that type of news, that's hard. And it's really hard to deliver that type of news to your guys when they're so anxious to get going. And how it is after a while of practicing against yourself all the time and against each other, they just want to play against somebody else, and that's the hardest part for our guys. But they've handled it well, and you just, coaches have had to take their advice a lot more during this time period. Coaches are so easy to tell guys, hey, we control what we control, you just move on, next play. We've had to tell ourselves that a lot, during this time period, and certainly that applied to our guys too.
So taking a page out of last year's book, last year, amazing home record, best in Niner history for a home record. Tough road losses, battled hard. This team plays slow, plays defense first, and then milks the shot clock on the other end. Do you think, starting out, we're talking to you right now while the team's 1-2, do you think that the empty arenas have played into kind of the intensity that we saw last year at home versus what we've seen so far this year? And how do you think the guys are going to respond?
For sure. It's an adjustment. It's definitely an adjustment. I'd be lying to tell you that not having fans there doesn't present some challenges. I mean, you naturally get a lot of juice, with our fans, and I love our competitive advantage when we are at home. And different points of the game. I think our fans were starting to kind of get a feel for what we were trying to do on both ends of the floor. And I think defensively, when we were taking teams late into the clock, they were starting to kind of get into like, really, really forcing teams into a bad shot or shot clock violations here and there. I think you naturally feed off of that stuff. And it's been an adjustment. We've had 3 home games, and I think each game we've gotten a little bit better in terms of our bench energy. I mean, this past Monday against South Carolina State, that was a noticeable difference and how much energy our guys had on the bench. I mean, they're getting used to it. They're used to drawing on the crowd, and they have to bring it on their own energy. And we've kind of we've established kind of that acronym for our players, BYE, bring your own energy, bring your energy. And our guys are getting used to it, and they did a good job on Monday. It's an adjustment for everybody. So some of the guys that weren't suited up, we had on the baseline, because we figured, hey, instead of having them in the third row of our staggered benches, they can't really see anything. We want them to be engaged in the game, maybe putting them on the baseline, even though they're a little further removed, maybe that'll give them a better visual. So that was the Georgia State game, but then they were so far away that they almost felt removed from the rest of the team. So then on Monday against South Carolina State, we said, no, forget that. We're putting you guys in the third row and you're bringing the juice. And they made a big difference. So it's an adjustment for everybody. We're all trying to do the best thing, but we don't know what the best thing is until you kind of live it, So it's an adjustment game by game.
With football sadly being over now, have you thought about bringing Coach Liskowski into the arena to give you guys some extra juice on the sidelines?
Whatever it takes. Even if I have to buy a cutout of him, if that's all we can do, I'll do that.
I'm not sure if the cutout has the same caffeine levels inside of them.
Yeah. No, I'll take any ideas we could get.
One other question, and then we can kind of talk about the team in general and some watchouts. With the COVID protocol and all that kind of stuff, can you just walk us through kind of what happens to get to a cancellation of a game? Like, are both teams getting tested right before the game, and if someone gets the red flag, then the game gets canceled, or it's you guys test every couple days, or what's that look like? How many times are they having to go through that?
Yeah, so our players are getting tested, or our program's getting tested 3 times a week, and that's kind of become the national norm for most schools. The hard part in college basketball is that there's no NBA commissioner, there's no Adam Silver, so excuse me, each conference is kind of doing their own thing, and it's kind of left to each conference to do that. But in these non-conference games, obviously you're playing different opponents from different conferences, so everybody kind of has their own. You have to agree upon a certain standard prior to that game being played. So most teams are at that 3 time a week mark, and they're usually getting tested the day before a game. So hopefully most teams won't have to deal with something like we did with the Tennessee deal, that was a multi-team event, some more moving parts, and it was the first one of the season and all that. But hopefully most teams will know before they get on a plane or a bus, whether they might have an issue or not. But yeah, it's kind of a lot of wait and see, and you're just kind of crossing your fingers until that team gets there and until that ball gets tipped. You're kind of on the edge of your seat until that happens.
So we know the returners from last year. We've got Jameer, who has got a crazy motor on him, freshman of the year, all of that great accolades that came along with the play he had last year. We got Jordan Shepard, Supika, who spent a lot of time on the floor, Bryce, who we saw last year. He's starting to get more minutes this year. Who out of the new guys has impressed you most so far?
There's a lot of new guys. The funny thing is we actually only have 2 returning starters, with Jameer and Jordan Shepard. And man, I'm glad they're back, because they're both all league and all conference players. And that's our starting backcourt, which is great. But the other pieces, it takes some time to kind of gel, to get the chemistry. I mean, Drew Edwards and Amadou Bamba aren't walking back through that door, so to kind of acclimate those other guys, it does take a little time. And actually, Eric Spoelstra from the Miami Heat, he has a quote that I've gone back to a lot, and he said, each team progresses at its own rate. Like every single year you start over. that team, some teams progress quicker than others. So for the newcomers, they've done a good job so far for the most part of blending in. I think Jerry Matos, a grad transfer from Dayton, has plugged himself in nicely into what we're doing, and he's started every game so far. I think Milos Šupica has increased his role. He's kind of been a little up and down so far, but in practices, he's been way more consistent than he has in the past. And I think that's just being in the same system for 3 years. He's actually the only player that's played for Coach Sanchez for 3 consecutive seasons. So hoping for a big, jump in his play this year. So I think those two being in that starting lineup, obviously Bryce as well, being a freshman last year and, getting spotty minutes here and there last year, but those have really helped him, and now his role is bigger. Then from the freshmen, those guys are plugging in well. And, Jackson Threadgill hit a couple big threes the other night and kind of got his offense going too. So I think they're all doing a good job, for the most part. But again, it's still building that team and building that chemistry so that when you face some adversity, we always talk about shared experiences. Last year we had to get to the point where our team felt good enough that when you get punched in the mouth and you hit some adversity, you're able to turn towards each other and not fracture as a group. And, that's going to be this team's journey. Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. That's kind of a Mike Tyson quote. He probably says it a little better than I do, but and it's so true. I mean, when you're comfortable and you're in comfortable settings, you can look really good. You're sticking to the plan, all that. But when the other team makes a run or you start facing some adversity, what team do you become? And that's the stuff that you need shared experiences. You need some time for guys to figure out, roles and just clicking with each other.
And curious about your thoughts on the new schedule for Conference USA, where it's a home and home, I guess, or an away and away with the same team you're kind of paired up with.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, with the situation, makes sense, but curious how you feel about that. I guess scouting's a little easier for those.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was going to say, for 2020, the year of the wasted scout, I think it'll help us there. Hopefully, things won't get changed as much on us. There's a lot of adjustments that are made the second time you play an opponent. And I don't know if fans realize that, but once you get film on playing an opponent once, usually that next time around, that's where coaching really happens, and the game of chess kind of happens a little bit. And you want to stick with what you do and stick with your system, but there are little changes here and there that can help you in that next game. And really go into a one-day turnaround like that, it almost becomes like a little mini NBA playoff series where teams in the NBA, they're doing that constantly for a 7-game series, and the adjustments made there are drastic. But it does bring a different dynamic. It's going to be an interesting, maybe easier from a scouting standpoint because you're not dealing with a brand new team, but really that's where you can win in some areas of details and some of the intricacies of the game and the matchup.
All right, we've kept you for a while, Vic, but we told you on Twitter you're going to get in the hot seat for Minor Obsession, and so far we've just been lobbing all these softballs at you. So rapid fire, I got some questions for you here that I need you to answer. All right?
All right.
Win Healy, Ellie Hill, Lucas Sfera. Whose kid's cutest?
Oh, I got to go with Lucas. I mean, I can't go against my own blood. Yeah.
That's fair.
Humble, but I'm not that humble.
No offense, Ellie and Win, but we pick Lucas over here. All right.
Appreciate
Green, gold, or white Bold Rush unis? What's your favorite?
I'll go with gold. I like the classic look with it. Yeah.
They look nice on TV. I'm waiting to see them in person.
Me too.
I might agree with you though.
Follow up on that. Do you like the Niners or do you like the CLT?
I like both. The gold one has the Niners, right? Or am I
feel like I've seen them both on all of them, but
I think
maybe
the gold had the Niners. The CLT is really sharp too, though. Now Lucas did say early on he thought it was an airplane, but I had to really point out the pick, and he's like, okay, that's the new C pick. And he was really good about every time he saw the old logo, he would point at it and he'd say C pick. And so the new logo threw him off a little bit, but now he's got it down now. He just calls it the new C pick. and I think it's actually the Bold C is what it's called, but we'll stick with the new seed pick.
I can't blame him. I saw an airplane once or twice when I looked at it too.
Yeah,
so.
early on, but now
Yeah.
I'm locked.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too.
All right, next one. So if you could pick one player or coach that you've worked with to have a cardboard cutout in the stands rooting you on, who would that be?
From Charlotte, from 49ers?
No, just former anybody you've worked with in your career.
Former coach or player? Good question.
It's the hot seat, man. Got to make them
you know
tough.
what? I'll go with Joey Buckets. Joe Harris. He won the 3-point contest here in Charlotte with the Brooklyn Nets, and he actually practiced in our building the night before, and he dedicated his trophy to us. So I'll go with Joey Buckets. Plus, he might give us some good mojo for our offense too.
All right, somebody needs to get one of those cutouts made. One-on-one, you versus Cody. Who's winning?
Oh, it's not even close. I'm blowing him out of the water. Now, Coach Fern might back me down and go into his post game. I might not be able to stop Coach Fern one-on-one.
We're going to ask him that next time. Fern versus Sfera, who's winning that one. Can Ron shoot the tray ball?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Draining them all day.
Probably more comfortable in the mid-range off the dribble, but he has a nice stroke from three.
Does he set him aside at practice when he's upset and say, "Young fellas, let me show you how it's done," and just start draining them?
No, he doesn't do that very often. I don't think he wants to make guys feel bad, and hurt their confidence. He wants them to have a high set of confidence going into games, but every now and then he'll sneak one in.
All right, bone in or bone out wings?
Bone out.
Bone out, yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's just easier.
Scott, you bone out too?
Absolutely, yeah.
I know a lot of like diehard bone, wing guys would criticize that, but it's just easier. And once you have kids, you guys know. I mean, it just you don't want to deal with the mess all the time.
To be fair, I would say bone in or bone out is really just a chicken finger, which I'm happy with.
True.
With buffalo sauce on it. But
With
Scott
sauce.
gets them naked and dips them into some barbecue sauce because he can't handle the buffalo.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Who has better hair, Anzac or Jerry? It's hard to tell, not being able to see him in person.
I'll go with Anzac. Anzac's, he's done some good work there this offseason.
I like it. They're both flopping all over the place while they're running up and down the court. It's nice.
Yeah.
All right, that was all from me.
Speaking of Jerry, I think just little known fact. I think Jerry, I could be mistaken, but aside from the Dominican national team that Coach Sanchez coached, Jerry is the first Dominican player that Coach Sanchez has ever coached regularly for a college team. So just a little known nugget. He's always getting, from a recruiting standpoint, he's always getting told, about the best Dominican players because of his, nationality and background. But Jerry's the first one to ever play for him. So
very interesting.
Yeah.
That's really
Scott,
cool.
you got anything else for Coach?
No, I mean, the only other thing is, I like to claim that we won the national championship last year because we did.
Scott was calling it months in advance. He was all in on that train.
Yeah.
No one can prove that we didn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So are we going to win again this year? Is this a repeat year?
we have to defend our title. Yeah, I don't know I just hope we have a postseason. I hope we get a chance to play in Dallas. I'm glad they got to experience Dallas, but I want them to actually get some minutes in Dallas as well. So if we get there, I'll be happy, and let's just compete and try to win one at a time once we get there.
Look, I know this isn't near as close to the heartbreak y'all felt last year, but Scott and I are no strangers to canceled tournaments. We flew up to Atlantic City for the A-10 tournament back in 2009 or 10. Niners were in a play-in game because they had just switched the system to where play-in games happened at schools instead of in Atlantic City. So we're up there. We're waiting for our games to start, and we're the 5 seed. And we lost the play-in game. So the Niners never even made it to Atlantic City. So we're up there with literally no Niners to watch.
Oh, no Niners to watch. Yeah. I hope you guys maybe won some money while you're there for your trouble or no?
A little bit, but not enough to cover the heartbreak.
I understand that.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. And, we hope to continue talking to you throughout the season. got some fun in-state games that we hope take place later this week with Davidson, and now I'm
App.
an
App
app.
State on
sorry,
Friday
App
on ESPNU. It'll be a big one.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
They're not even worth his time to think about App. That's why he couldn't think of the name. But I got you, Scott.
Thanks, I appreciate it, Sean.
The most important opponent is the one coming up. All right.
That's right.
One at a time. One at a time.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Well, thanks again. We appreciate it as always, and let's win some games. Go Niners.
Yes, sir. Go Niners. No, and I really mean that. I appreciate what you guys do, and I appreciate you connecting teams and administrators and coaches with the fans and giving us this platform and just getting our brand out there and just some excitement going about our sports teams is huge, especially in a year like this year, like we talked about, without getting to see you guys in person, even, waving from afar. It is really nice to be able to do something like this. So thank you guys for all you do, and thanks for connecting other Niners together.
We appreciate that, and love the university just like everybody else. Want to move it forward, so glad we can help.
Appreciate
and we
that.
look forward to you seeing us in the stands. Hopefully they put me and Sean next to each other.
Yes, I'm looking forward to those cutouts.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, guys, have a good one.
You too.
Bye.